thanks a bunch to Janice and to the organizers of today's event. I really enjoy attending this one. This is actually one of my favorite groups to connect with. I'm sad that we can't do it in person, but it's been really nice to use this cool feature and chat with everyone in between. So like Janice said, my name is Sam Tank and I work at the Great Lakes Commission, and we are based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So not too far away actually from you folks in Ontario, but the Commission serves not only the United States and the Great Lakes states, but also the provinces of Ontario and Quebec with Great Lakes rights. But my role at the Commission is to coordinate the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative and the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework. And I'm so going to provide an update on both of those today. I do have, as my kind of unofficial co-presenters at the bottom, all of my collaborators on the two core teams for the collaborative and for PAMF. So I know we're all very familiar with Phragmites in this virtual room, so I won't go into a lot of details about the plant's biologies or impact, but as you can see from these photos, these stands form these really thick near-monocultures where the dead stand biomass remains for several years, and this further shades out native or desirable plants and eliminates a lot of habitat for our fish and wildlife species that we care about. I've actually been in quite a few mature stands where you go in on a sunny day and it seems like it's dusk once you've stepped inside. We know that Phragmites isn't just a problem locally, and it's not even a new problem either. This Phragmites, invasive Phragmites, has been here for over 100 years at this point, especially on the eastern part of the continent. And as you can see by the map from Saltonstall et al., Phragmites is not just this, issue in Ontario, not just this issue in Michigan where I am, but it's this binational problem in North America. And we needed to think of some sort of large-scale solution for this huge problem. So that's why in 2012, partners from the Great Lakes Commission and the United States Geological Survey came together to establish the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. And the collaborative was formed to facilitate communication among stakeholders across the Great Lakes region and serve as this resource center for all things Phragmites, so biology, management, and research. Our mission at the collaborative is to facilitate communication among stakeholders across the region and then serve as this resource center. And so it's not just us at the Great Lakes Commission and USGS who are part of the collaborative, but we think about this collaborative community. So everyone doing management or research or trying to impact or being impacted by, in a lot of times, non-native Phragmites are part of this collaborative. So I would consider everyone participating in this meeting today to be part of the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. And you are who we are here for, the Phragmites community. Be remiss if I didn't mention that the work that we do is really driven by our advisory committee. A few of them at least are on the call today, but they represent this binational cross-section of Phragmites experts, and they guide the work that the collaborative does. So not to get too into the weeds, as we like to say, but I want to give you a little bit of background on the structure of our collaborative. So the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative uses this approach called collective impact to help guide the work that we do. In 2016, the core team did publish a paper. If anyone's interested in that, I'd be happy to send you the paper on collective impact, and I'm sure Heather Braun would be happy to send it to you as well. She's one of the authors. But there's 5 conditions of collective impact. There's this neutral backbone organization, and that's the Great Lakes Commission, where I'm at. And what we do is we anchor the work of the group and provide this long-term administrative support. The collaborative maintains open lines of communication with broad range of stakeholders. We do this through our listserv, our website. We do this through the webinars that we put on and other sort of communication products that we've developed over the years. And over the past, it's been a long time, but 4 years, the advisory committee has been developing a common agenda. And that is our kind of first step towards developing a path forward with defined goals and objectives for the collaborative community. And I'll talk about that in a little bit next. Some of the things that we're working on currently, we're working to establish a shared system of measures to evaluate the effectiveness of our progress for the common agenda and the member strategies that are included within it. And then finally, we're working to promote mutually reinforcing activities with other members so that we can align efforts towards achieving our collective goals. And by utilizing this collective impact approach, this allows us this really systematic way to get from all of these root causes and all of these problems that we've been facing surrounding Phragmites and get to a place where the Great Lakes isn't invaded by non-native Phragmites. And that might seem like, a fantastical goal right now, but we think it's possible. So here's what our common agenda looks like. This is, like I said, our big first step to align the goals and establish the shared vision for change. And we did release this in November of 2020, so pretty recently. And the purpose of the common agenda is to clearly define the intentions of the collaborative. And remember, the collaborative just isn't like the advisory committee and the core team, but it's this entire network. And we're trying to develop this shared understanding of gaps and problem areas surrounding Phragmites, and then highlight those areas and strategies that we're working on or trying to work on. You can check out the common agenda on our website, and I'll provide that link in a little bit. Just to break it down for you, the common agenda is broken up into 4 focus areas, and you can see regional coordination and collaboration, best management restoration planning, advancement of research and technology, and then funding for Phragmites management. And then each of those focus areas has 3 or 4 member strategies. I'll just highlight one of them. So one of the focus areas is the advancement of research and technology. And under that, there's 3 member strategies. One of the member strategies is supporting and implementing the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, or PAMP, and I'll touch on that shortly. Providing a forum for researchers to collaborate and communicate with managers. We do this pretty regularly. We hosted a session at the Upper Midwest Invasive Species Conference recently, and I'll share some of the other ways that we have these open lines of communication. And tracking and sharing the latest advancements in research and technology. So a lot of the work that we share out of the collaborative isn't something that the advisory committee or even the core team is putting together, but this is work that's coming from all different levels. We like to work with a variety of different groups, as many as we can, and highlight the work that's going on across the basin. And so we're really just kind of collecting and collating as much information as we can, identifying gaps in driving work forward, and then facilitating this dialogue between partners. We do that in a lot of different ways. So over the past about decade, I suppose, since the collaborative was formed, we've developed a number of resources, and they're all geared towards meeting the needs of Phragmites managers and those impacted by non-native Phragmites, or those researching non-native Phragmites that might need more information. We have a website, and here's our web address. It's greatlakesphragmites.net. I'd encourage everyone to go check it out. This serves as our resource hub for all things Phragmites. You can find how to identify all the way to where are some local invasive species organizations in my area. We have a webinar series with, I think there's nearly 40 archived webinars at this point. We're starting off another webinar series that focuses on students, and so it's calling it our Students of Frag webinar series. So if there's anyone listening right now who is researching Phragmites and wants to share their work, we'd love to highlight you. We have some great speakers lined up for this year. We're also active on social media, so you can find us there. And we have a listserv, and we share out the latest research. The list goes on, but these are just some of the things that we do. And when we're thinking about what the community can do to support the common agenda, I wanted to give you some easy things. One, you're already doing it. You're attending this fantastic meeting put on by Janice and all of the wonderful people at the Ontario Phragmites Working Group. And this is a great way that you can share relevant Phragmites management research and resources with the collaborative community, but you don't have to just limit it to this meeting, right? I know that we're going to go off this field season and we're going to all do our own individual projects, but I'd really encourage everyone to reach out and try to work collectively with others in their area. We want to avoid this duplication of efforts as much as we can and try to really work together. And if you have great resources, or if you have things that you think need to be shared out, or you have questions, we're a great resource for you to share through and ask questions through as well. And then finally, you can join PANTH. So I'll just spend the last little bit of my talk talking about the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, or PANTH. I know some of you are familiar with the program, but I did want to give a little bit of a background on it. So there's a lot of Phragmites management occurring in the Great Lakes region, and these techniques have one thing in common. They're resource intensive. And there's one thing that we as managers have in common is we have limited resources, we have limited time, we have limited funds, we have limited personnel, knowledge. And there's not really a cure-all for Phragmites at this point. And there's a lot of uncertainty that exists surrounding implementing different techniques. So you might have a hydrologic manipulation in one area and it might work really well, but you might go to a different stand or a different part of the region and you might get really dissimilar results. And so we want to understand where this disconnect is happening and why are we seeing this inconsistency with our implementation practices and our results. And another thing that is hard to do is there's not really a great way to share the project that you're doing more broadly out. So you might have a really great technique and it's working really well, but how do you communicate that to your partner in the next community or, you know, across federal lines? And so we had to ask ourselves, okay, how can we do better? How can we implement some sort of management practice that is on a broader scale and reduce this trial and error approach to management? And how can we try to learn from all of these uncertainties and optimize the timing of management? And so that's where the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative and the community came up with this idea for PANTH. And so PANTH implements an adaptive management framework. And when done correctly, adaptive management allows us to have this systematic learning where we are implementing some sort of technique and then evaluating it and then adjusting and then going back and starting over again. When we learn, we can reduce uncertainty. We can move away from this contingency planning where, oh, well, this didn't work this year, so we'll try something different the next year. And it can help us improve our effectiveness and hopefully reduce wasted resources in the future. So PANTH's been a pretty big undertaking. It's supported by the USGS, by the University of Georgia and the Great Lakes Commission as the core science team members. Then we have a technical working group, and Janice, thank you for representing that for the Ontario Phragmites Working Group. And they were really integral for the design and initial structure of PAMF. And then we have our participants. And a participant in PAMF in this program is anyone managing non-native Phragmites in the Great Lakes region. So this has turned out to be federal agencies all the way to grassroots groups or someone who just has Phragmites in their backyard. So we have an entire wide range of participants. And we're able to do that through the design of our program, which I'll just quickly talk about. So this is an iterative program that runs on an annual cycle. Our schedule is August 1st to July 31st each year. So that's, I always say, anything to do with timing in PAMF is always a little bit confusing because we don't run on that calendar schedule. We run on more of a management-based schedule. But the first step, participants would enroll a site. They would implement some of our monitoring techniques. They would submit data to us, and we run our learning model, which provides management guidance. And then that management guidance is implemented in the form of management. And then all of that starts over again the next year with another round of monitoring, and the cycle continues. So when sites are enrolled, and when I mean enrolled, they're just entered in onto our central web hub. And so here's just a little snapshot of what that looks like. It is a central database that houses all things for your Phragmites project. And we have a lot of really great resources that I don't have nearly enough time today to tell you about, but this can help with project planning as well as just kind of tracking data throughout the years as well. So sites are enrolled into the web hub, and sites that are currently enrolled, they really range from, we have, I don't know, I think in acres, not hectares, so I'm trying to think of what that would be. Really large to really small. You can have stands that, you know, are just a roadside ditch all the way up to a many hundreds of acres site as well. And so those are enrolled into the web hub. And then each site is monitored every July. And you can see there's a little kit that we provide you right here. And this allows you to go out and monitor your site yourself. We have detailed instructions, lots of videos, printable guides, lots of resources. So you don't need, you know, a master's degree to go out and to monitor your site. And it shouldn't take you all that much time either. And so once sites are monitored, we're able to assess the invasion of the site. So is it just minimally invaded, which we would call a site being in state 1, or is it highly invaded, which we would consider a site in state 6? And this is the information that our model then uses, along with any management that happened the previous year, to learn and update. We then include cost information as it's provided as well. And the output of this learning model is annual site-specific management guidance. So each site that's enrolled gets its own unique form of guidance. And this is what the guidance looks like. You can see below that's what the guidance looks like on the web hub, but guidance is meant to be really simple. So participants are going to receive an optimal form of guidance and then a near optimal. I will say the model does consider your restrictions. So if you're not able to, for example, apply glyphosate, you can say, I can't apply glyphosate, and then we're not going to recommend that you do any sort of glyphosate treatment to that site. When we look at the different management combinations that we track, we have 16. They're made up of 10 different individual management techniques. These techniques are pretty simple in the form of guidance. This is really what they look like, or on the last slide where we just say, okay, in the translocating phase, which is going to be that fall period, go ahead and apply glyphosate. During the winter, the dormant phase, you're going to do some sort of remove biomass. And then in the growing phase or the summer, you're going to rest. This really simplistic way of providing guidance allows us to have a wide range of participation, because if we went out and we said, okay, you have to apply glyphosate, this brand with a 2% concentration, and add in X surfactant, and you need to do it with a boom sprayer, and for removing biomass, you need to use this specialized piece of equipment, that would severely limit who could participate in PAMP. Instead, we provide kind of recommendations on what you should consider and how to hire contractors if you're a landowner, and what sort of implementation techniques that you could use with these recommendations. And then once participants get the guidance, they're able to go out and implement the management themselves. So we might not tell participants, okay, you have to go out and use this sort of equipment and these concentrations and so on, but they do provide us that information back in the form of the management reports that they submit. So these 5 steps make up PAMP's annual cycle. Sites are only enrolled once, so you really only have fewer steps after the initial enrollment period. One question I get asked a lot is, how much time does it take to participate? And it really depends on the size of your site. But thinking about kind of the average size site, which is probably about 1.5 hectares, I think, it is going to take you that first year maybe 4 to 5 hours, because you have to enroll the site as well. But after that, it's probably a 2 to 3 hour annual commitment. So it's a pretty minimal commitment. We think the benefits that you get from it are worth that. PAMP is in its 4th iterative cycle, but we are thinking forward. So this sort of collective learning process takes a lot of data points. And one of the end products that we really want to get out of this is we want to have some sort of best management practice guide that we can share out more broadly, but we're not quite at that point yet. So we have a strategic plan that's going to guide us for the next 5 years. And we're thinking in terms of the PAMP cycle 5 years. So this is really August 2020 to July 2026. I know that is a little confusing, but these are some of the things that we're trying to focus on as a team and annually assess. So right now we have about 220 management units enrolled in PAMP, and that's by 71 different managers. And you can see our range is pretty well spread across the basin. We do have a fair amount of participation from Ontario, which is great, but we'd always like more. Ontario is large. My favorite site is actually this one all the way up here. It just seems so cool. They're doing spading out on an island that's only accessible by boat. So I think that's pretty neat. So anyone attending this conference today who's doing any sort of frag management, you can enroll in PAMP and you can benefit twofold from it. We say one benefit is you're receiving this management guidance, which could be really useful, especially if you're new and you don't have necessarily a plan set out for the next management year. But the other benefit is that you get to participate in this basin-wide collective learning process. So you get to take your hard work and your dedication, you get to stretch it just a little bit further by contributing your data to this collective effort. We try to make it as easy as possible to get involved. So unfortunately last year I had all of these great plans and I was going to come to Ontario multiple times and lead in-person trainings, which is a really fun part of what I do, but that couldn't happen. So we had to adjust and we had to think, okay, how can we make this program a little bit more accessible moving forward? So we're developing a course that I think is used by like universities a lot of times, but it's a site called Moodle, and it will be kind of a self-guided course to help participants figure out how they can participate in PAMP, and it only should take a couple hours to complete. We're also going to be offering at least one live webinar training. We haven't set a date for that, but it'll probably be May or June, and we'll advertise that out. But if anyone's interested in getting started today or learning more about PAMP, you can definitely reach out to us. Our PAMP email is pamp@glc.org. And same with the collaborative. If anyone has anything that they'd like to share, or questions about the common agenda, or ways that we as a collaborative can help the community, resource ideas, please reach out to us. In my email, you can also, these actually both go to me, but you can also reach me at sam@glc.org as well. So thanks again for letting me provide this update. Hopefully I didn't go too over time. I could talk about all of this forever.
Thank you so much, Sam. You covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time. Did a great job there. I would encourage anyone out there that has projects that aren't enrolled in PAMP to do that. It's really important. The more data points that model can feed in, the better the output for sure. And one of the great things, if you've never been to the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative, there's a wealth of information there. As Sam said, they're excellent at collecting and collating the information and providing it there, and all the up-to-date. The research, it's all there as well, and it's linked to our Ontario Phragmites Working Group information. There was a Frag Friday newsletter that comes out if you're on that mailing list, and there's a lot of Ontario projects I see that are highlighted in there. So this is really neat. Anyway,
there are Ontario. Yeah. We know we highlight them more than any other state or province, and I think it's just because you guys do such a great job here, and it seems like there's a lot more engagement from the community, and I think you should be really proud, because I know, Janice, that's a lot of the work that you do.
Not at all. It's not me at all. I'm just so fortunate. I said there's just so many neat, amazing people up there doing this work. I just get to work with them, so it's pretty. And I do want to say, like, we should be pretty proud, because within that model, Lynn Short's spading method got put in there, and the cutting to drown, which hadn't been even on the radar in the U.S. So those are two really neat methods that are being used in Ontario. It started in Ontario, and it's being spread out across the Great Lakes Basin. So that's something for you fraggers in Ontario to be very, very proud of. Thanks again, Sam. Really appreciate it.